gain momentum that way. But it looks like our trainers are getting ready. So, Pokemon trainers, if you're just joining us, this is Swiss Round 5 of the North American International Championships. Incineroar and the Calyrex Shadow Rider out on the field for Cesar Reyes, and our reigning NAIC champ has gone for Incineroar and the Calyrex Ice Rider that he is rocking with.
Both Incineroars out will be intimidating each other, but no other crucial targets with a clear amulet on one side and a special attacker on the other side. The Intimidate from Cesar's side does move first, might give us an indication that his Incineroar is faster than Patrick's, which can be important as you start to think through fake out order here or pivoting out and what comes in the meantime. Both Calyrexes don't love to see the Incineroar on the other side, and the Calyrex Ice Rider also doesn't love to see the Calyrex on the other side. It may be something that forces a quick terrestrialization to be a fairy type for Patrick's Calyrex, which would give it a much better chance in this matchup, but is a crucial resource burned. Meanwhile, the Calyrex on Cesar's side really has to be careful, may not have that big of an offensive threat available this turn if the Calyrex does terrestrialize, and would pay a high price for it if a knockoff was coming back the other way.
Yeah, the knockoff can be devastating into that Calyrex Shadow Rider, but we're going to just see a Protect coming up first of all on the Calyrex on Patrick's side. The Fake Out does not find its mark thanks to that beautifully defensive play that Patrick has gone for here, as the Astral Barrage will be able to come through. Now, this is only going to connect onto the Incineroar. Being a Dark type, it's going to be able to take this reasonably well, just giving it a little bit of chip to start whittling away at that opposing side of the field. But Patrick now in the prime position to go for the parting shot, start pivoting out, does not want to even go for the Fake Out here, but can come back, Intimidate later on.
Yeah, Cesar gets away with one a little bit here. Patrick may be expecting that the Calyrex on the other side would just protect itself this turn, and so goes for the parting shot into Incineroar to make sure his Incineroar could get off the field, but could have had something much more high impact like a knockoff into Calyrex or a parting shot into Calyrex. But Cesar takes the risk, gets away with it, and just has Calyrex get some free damage into Incineroar.
Yes, and now you do get to bring that Miraidon onto the field for free as well. You can set up the electric train thanks to the Hadron engine, and now suddenly, if you're on Patrick's side, you're applying a lot of offensive pressure with something that could come out like an Electro Drift. This is, of course, the Assault Vest variant, not the Choice Specs variant, so it will be less damage than what we may be used to.
Yeah, may not be able to one-hit KO Incineroar, who may also be leaving the field anyway, but a Snarl is quite high impact. If the Incineroar were to switch off the field, it would probably be to a special attacker who doesn't like the Snarl, and then the Snarl just into the Calyrex will be significant damage and mitigation. But the Calyrex on Patrick's side still threatened by the Astral Barrage, and so must become a fairy type here. Uses that terrestrialization on the second turn.
Yep, nice defensive play here, just changing up the typing. Cesar nodding away here as well, the interaction on the field as Calyrex is able to go for the Astral Barrage. It will find its mark on both of Patrick's Pokemon, but as you can see, not going to be putting them in any range of a KO, as the Miraidon can retaliate with the Draco Meteor, finds its mark on Incineroar. Again, no KO, no crime happening here out on the field, as we can see the knockoff come through. Now, that is not going to be doing a lot of damage, but critically removing that clear amulet, so it's going to be able to go for the Intimidates later on, but thanks to its longevity, is able to set up this Trick Room. So now Patrick in control of the speed. That might look a little bit dicey for the Miraidon, though.
Right, Miraidon now going to move after the Incineroar. Incineroar might just be threatened with the KO here. Turn a little bit of a mixed bag. Once again, Cesar risks the Calyrex, and Patrick doesn't go after it, so it just gets damage into Incineroar, gets a free Astral Barrage up. The Trick Room, pretty high impact. The Iron Hand's going to come out, though, and try to play inside of that Trick Room to some advantage.
Yes, Iron Hand's using its Quark Drive as well, utilizing the electric terrain that's on the field, as Calyrex just goes for this Protect in the Trick Room. It's known as the speedy Pokemon, so it isn't in the limelight right now, as the Glacial Lance can come through. Iron Hand's going to be able to take this reasonably well, and again, both our trainers playing very defensively around a lot of the powerful hits that these Calyrexes are both capable of dealing out. Iron Hand's, again, another Pokemon primed to be able to take this Volt Switch really, really well. But I think the critical thing for Patrick is, hey, you've set up the Trick Room, but you've got Miraidon on the field. Let's get that Pokemon out of that and bring a Pokemon in that's going to utilize Trick Room in a much more effective way.
Incineroar likes to be in here in the Trick Room, likes to get this Intimidate into Iron Hands as well. Probably, though, the faster Fake Out is still in Iron Hand's favor. Should be able to Fake Out the Incineroar if it wants, which would let another Astral Barrage come off. So far, Cesar has shown a willingness to kind of risk Calyrex, not prioritize its health bar so much, it's just making sure that Astral Barrage is coming out to weaken things, but does have kind of a dwindling total health. Now, Incineroar has ended up very low, Iron Hand's just above 50%, so maybe have to be a little bit more careful with Calyrex, but not at this moment. Just a Fake Out into Incineroar and the Glacial Lance coming out.
Yep, Glacial Lance, of course, connecting, but we know that Calyrex on Cesar's side is going to be able to take that, and the Iron Hands too. However, it cannot take the follow-up coming through here. The Covert Cloak on the Incineroar really paying off here for Patrick. You know, maybe Cesar just kind of missed that on the team sheet here, but hey, that's Pokemon at the end of the day, and you have been able, if you're Patrick, to capitalize on that moment and get a knockout.
Right. Covert Cloak, an unusual item choice on Incineroar. Cesar misses it, gets the Fake Out into Incineroar, but still loses Calyrex on the turn and doesn't get to get that Astral Barrage off. The fake out into Calyrex would have shifted things the other way, but now things look quite dicey. Both of these Pokemon very low in health. The Iron Hands has already been intimidated. The Incineroar node now does have fake out once again into Calyrex. We know it can't go into the Incineroar, now Cesar knows as well, but can still mitigate the pressure from the Glacial Lance on this turn and try to bridge the gap out of Trick Room and try to get to that last Pokemon in the end.
I think as well, the knockoff coming through into the Calyrex would have still been dealing devastating damage. The Calyrex on Patrick's side, though, you know, looking in a prime position, so I think this was a great target here from Cesar, making sure to slow it down. And it looks like the Iron Hands is able to get a little bit of revenge and redemption into that opposing Incineroar, using that Drain Punch not only get the knockout, but also get a little bit of HP recovery as well, give it a little bit more positionability on the field, because it wants to be able to stay around, it wants to be able to keep going through and navigating these Trick Room turns.
Yeah, quite valuable that Iron Hands was able to pick up that KO even with the Intimidate down.
Yeah.
The Quark Drive attack boost helping that in this case. The Electric Terrain gone, but now a much more vulnerable Drain Punch target hits the field instead as Chien-Pao comes out with Trick Room still up.
Yep, Chien-Pao not only a little vulnerable to obviously fighting type attacks, but that sort of ruin ability on the field as well, going to be reducing the defense of Pokemon in play. So if possibly the Iron Hands wants to find the target there, it's going to be able to do more damage.
The Sword of Ruin also maybe reducing the defense enough that Glacial Lance is able to pick up a double KO here. And if Calyrex is faster than Iron Hands, that would just be the first thing to move and be, you know, a devastating KO. We don't know yet the speed here, so you know, a crucial decision for both players.
That would give the Calyrex so much momentum. Not only could you potentially get those knockouts, but then the Chilling Neigh boost start rolling through as well. But Chien-Pao actually trying to take control of the speed here, going for that Sucker Punch, trying to get the Iron Hands in range. But Iron Hands actually goes first, goes for the Drain Punch into that Chien-Pao, going to be pulling it all the way down to his Focus Sash, getting all that HP back, kind of challenging this opposing Calyrex to be like, try and stop me, try and get the knockout on me. I've got all this HP back. That Sucker Punch really null and void as Calyrex does try its best to get the knockout, and it still does, despite the Drain Punch. Does a double KO for the Calyrex. The critical hit coming through on the Iron Hands, despite Cesar's best efforts to keep it in play.
All right, the Sucker Punch adds a little bit of chip damage. The critical hit adds even more, and Glacial Lance manages to pick up both of those KOs. You know, really strong turn out of that.
Yeah, these two Ice-type Pokemon out on the field, you know, yes, it's now a Fairy-type, but its origin still there on the Frosty side, really working well synergetically to do a lot of offensive pressure.
Now, Rhydon is in a tricky position. Wants to be able to KO Calyrex, but if it does, it's going to have to lock into a single target move, which would just mean it takes a Glacial Lance. So you can try for Dazzling Gleam, picking up both KOs at once, but Calyrex on the other side looks like it should be healthy enough to take that Dazzling Gleam and respond.
I think if you're the Miraidon, you're really going to try and hope you're going to get the critical hit to try and deal with that opposing Calyrex, but you're definitely putting your best efforts in here, going for the Terrestrialization as well. That will boost up the Dazzling Gleam, enable it to do a little bit of extra damage, but Chien-Pao going to be able to get the advantage to go for the Icicle Crash first of all. Miraidon able to come through. Dazzling Gleam will, we know, be able to get the KO on the Chien-Pao, but Calyrex still able to hang on, in a position to retaliate and try and close up this game one for Patrick.
Dazzling Gleam just not enough at the end of the day. It got fairly close, but then the Glacial Lance here to close it out.
Yeah, that's a very solid KO. Game one does go to our reigning NAIC champion in Patrick Connors, but we have a set to go through. These trainers aren't out just after one. They have the potential to try and push it to a game three, and Cesar definitely put up a formidable effort in here. You know, really great utility play with the restricted Pokemon, but Patrick just had an edge throughout.
The Trick Room really shifted the momentum of the game, and Patrick did a good job of managing the fake-out pressure. It seemed like Cesar was getting the better side of it all throughout the early game, as Calyrex kept freely going for Astral Barrages without kind of respecting the offense on the other side. But ultimately, Patrick executed on the game plan that he needed, which was weakening down the Iron Hands, weakening down the Incineroar, and then letting Glacial Lance close this out.
And I did really like the way both our trainers used their kind of support Pokemon in the form of these Incineroars, bringing them in, trying to go for the knockoffs to remove the Clear Amulet, for example, on the Calyrex Ice Rider, but then also Patrick utilizing the fake out and the parting shot in the right moments to support the partner Pokemon was really well played. The Calyrex Ice Rider really did steal the show in the end, though. This double KO was a great swing of momentum for Patrick to really close up that game one.
So much damage when you start getting boosts from the Chilling Neigh, have that big threat, have the Sword of Ruin to lower defense even more. It really turns Calyrex, you know, a lot of the more recent Calyrex in this format have been Trick Room as a secondary strategy, offense as a secondary strategy, to just being something that is very stable on the field. This kind of shows that original Calyrex mindset of get the damage out in the Trick Room and just threaten a full-on sweep.
And we are seeing a kind of shift back to the traditional Calyrex on Patrick's side. You know, it's running that high horsepower, not the leech seed that we've seen a lot of trainers pick up in recent weeks as well. So you then have a nice way to be able to target opposing Pokemon like Incineroar, being that fire type and dealing some damage out on the field. But speaking of Incineroar, speaking of Calyrex, they're both out front and center for Patrick. And Cesar, you know, bringing the Miraidon and then maybe taking a leaf out of the Treasure of Ruin book and bringing Chi-Yu to the field.
Chi-Yu means that this Miraidon is oh so threatening. If you thought Choice Specs Miraidon in with the electric terrain from the Hadron engine, getting the Hadron engine boost was a lot of damage, well, the Beads of Ruin just amplifies it more, which means that you want to put a fake out into that spot. You don't want Miraidon to just get to throw out that huge damage. That means you have to deal with Chi-Yu on the other side instead. That's still threatening probably a KO into Calyrex, which may still force a Terastallization and a ton of damage down into Calyrex. Now, if you can withstand all that damage, it probably does enable a chance for Trick Room to go up, which would quickly turn momentum back the other way, especially if Chi-Yu has, you know, depending on what Chi-Yu has locked into. No overheat here means that the kind of one-hit KO ability is lessened to some extent, and means that that's probably a viable path through that Cesar needs to be kind of finding the reaction to.
Well, as you said, Chi-Yu can pack a punch all by itself as well with something like a Heat Wave or a Flamethrower. We are going to see the Terastallization force through on the Miraidon, so it's going to become a Fairy type once again here, just, you know, removing some of its offensive weaknesses, but also potentially boosting up something like a Dazzling Gleam. It's a Terastallization apiece actually here. All these Pokemon getting beautiful and bejeweled out there on center stage here at NAIC, as the Calyrex Ice Rider also forces itself into this Fairy Terastallization. This is a really good way to try and deal with some of the fire-type pressure that the Chi-Yu could be dealing through as well, as Incineroar finds its mark down on the Miraidon. This is definitely the wise choice, as Chi-Yu just goes straight for the Ruination, finds its mark on Calyrex, Ruination doing 50% to the remaining HP here, meaning that now that Calyrex is in a difficult spot going forward. But at least in this turn, it can go for this Glacial Lance. Not able to get a KO, however, but Miraidon, thanks to the critical hit, now in a very devastating position going forward.
Miraidon's so low after that critical hit. Cesar makes the right play there, goes ahead and goes for the Terastallization, doesn't just expect that a Trick Room will be coming out from the other side, and so doesn't need to Terastallize. And Patrick may be hoping that it would just be a Dragon-type Miraidon sitting on the other side, doesn't go for the Trick Room himself and tries to get the damage now. But that means Miraidon is out on the field, no fake-out pressure this turn, full damage potential to just, you know, do so much to either of these Pokemon. Chi-Yu also doesn't fall for the Terastallization on the other side, still gets really valuable damage with Ruination, and also means they can mount Ruination the Incineroar before Miraidon moves.
The opposing Calyrex has gone for the Protect, though. If this has been the target from Cesar's side, then Incineroar in a position to try and get some damage out on the board. Chi-Yu just sitting pretty on the field, going for another Ruination and just weakening Patrick's Pokemon one by one. Looks like Miraidon has locked into Electro Drift, but has not been able to find a KO here, thanks to Patrick's Protect on the Calyrex. As Incineroar decides to get out of there, goes for the Parting Shot, reduces some of the potential special attack that Chi-Yu could go for. It is Choice Scarf, though, so it's locked into that Ruination, but I think the critical thing was the guaranteed switch out here. You can then possibly come and fake out a little bit later on in this match.
Right, doesn't opt for damage immediately, instead gets the pivot out to Amoonguss. We just saw the Miraidon lock into Electro Drift, so it'll be resisted by Amoonguss. Chi-Yu also locked into Ruination, means that it can't threaten a Heat Wave to get past this. So Amoonguss should be able to redirect both attacks on this turn and give Calyrex a chance to attack. An attack that could be really impactful. It could be a Trick Room to take the speed control of this game and give Amoonguss a chance to Spore once these couple of turns of Electric Terrain that'll be remaining afterwards are gone. But it could also just be a Glacial Lance that's threatening a KO into Miraidon. So I think Patrick's done a good job of kind of diffusing the offensive potential here despite leaving the Miraidon on the field.
I always find Amoonguss to be the #1 disruptive Pokemon, and as you've identified here, it really puts a spanner in the works for Cesar's plan here. You can draw in that Ruination, you can stop your Calyrex from being taken down in this turn, and that's exactly what the Amoonguss is doing here. Obviously, it's going to take a big amount of damage for its troubles, but if that enables the Calyrex to get that set up, it could be a really good play for Patrick. Ruination comes through, connects, will obviously do 50% to the opposing Amoonguss, and Miraidon, we know it's locked in, is going to have to go for this Electro Dress, but into the Grass type on Amoonguss with the Electric Terrain is actually able to get that knockout. So Amoonguss has, I think, fought valiantly in this game too, done what it needs to do, and now Calyrex has to capitalize on this opportunity, goes for that Trick Room in the face of two very speedy Pokemon. Patrick now has the utility to bring in something like the Incineroar from the back. You can go for a Fake Out, you can go for a knockoff, but critically you can start getting the Chilling Nade boost rolling on this Calyrex.
Yeah, Mungus pays a high price for that turn. Between the Beads of Ruin and all the multipliers, Electric Drift probably was close to one hit KO. Was able to easily finish up the damage after the Ruination. But by going for it means both of these Pokemon stay on the field fairly poorly positioned, right? Glacial Lance is threatening to move before Miraidon and get the KO. Chiyu can only do Ruination as the last move of the turn, meaning it can't ever really threaten a KO itself.
That's true.
And so Cesar's going to have to find a way to pivot something more potent out on the field. Miraidon on the other side then also has the Assault Vest, meaning that it's bulky into the special attackers that Cesar might have, like the Calyrex Shadow lurking in the back, meaning that if Miraidon goes down like this, it may be a difficult path to deal with Miraidon on the other side.
Yeah, this turn aligns, I think, beautifully for Patrick. As you can see, the Calyrex is easily able to deal with that opposing Miraidon. That's one Pokemon down, one Chilling Nade boost given out for this Calyrex. And then, thanks to the fact that the Chiyu is running that Choice Scarf, Miraidon, in a position to outspeed it, can go for the Draco Meteor, not messing around here, just guaranteeing that knockout. And that's two Pokemon down on Cesar's side. Going to be forced to bring those last two remaining Pokemon in the back, center, and forward. We can see that it's going to be the Iron Hands and the Calyrex. Iron Hands are Pokemon that can work relatively well within Trick Room. Calyrex not so much, and particularly when you've got a Calyrex on the opposing side that's already got one boost up. If Patrick is able to capitalize on that and start getting more damage on the board, it's going to be difficult for the Calyrex to shine.
Right, the Calyrex Shadow in a poor position. I think the Draco Meteor is very interesting. Patrick obviously expecting something else to be in that slot. Very easy to just deal with a Chiyu there if that's what you think is going to be sitting there. Draco, though, would have threatened pretty general damage across anything that Cesar could have brought into that slot, whether it was Iron Hands or Incineroar, which you can't do with Electric or Fairy offense kind of as generically. But then because it does just land in the Chiyu, it leaves this Miraidon in a much worse spot. Now at -2 special attack really isn't a threat to Iron Hands at all, and so Iron Hands ends up in Trick Room, moving more quickly than either of Patrick's Pokemon, and being a big problem at this point. While it's still at full health and they're really not that threatened, the Chilling Nade, though, going to help at least be some potential damage back.
No Fake Out coming through, just straight away going for the Drain Punch, just trying to weaken up this Miraidon, so maybe Calyrex is going to be able to deal with it. It is running that Focus Sash, so you know if you're Cesar that you were able to take one of these attacks, and now depending on the speed interactions, Miraidon obviously getting there first, going to be able to go for that Snarl. That's a knockout on the Calyrex, weakens the Iron Hands. It's looking really difficult for this Iron Hands to claw back through this match.
Yeah, Iron Hands should not be able to do it at this point. The Glacial Lance, just so much damage. The Calyrex Shadow Rider does not protect itself on that last turn. I was hoping to maybe sneak an Astral Barrage in if the Miraidon wanted to switch out of its Draco Meteor drops, but it doesn't happen. Instead, it's just an easy 2 faster attacks and KO onto Calyrex.
Patrick just closing out this game here. Iron Hands tries to go for the low kick, but to no avail thanks to the Protect on the Calyrex, meaning that the Miraidon on Patrick's side is able to go for this Volt Switch. It will find its mark thanks to Iron Hands typing. It's really not going to be doing too much damage, but I think Patrick is really just setting up the ball position now to start closing out this game.
Yeah, just a very safe way to close the game.
Yeah.
If Miraidon gets KO'd there, then you have Fake Out plus Glacial Lance on this turn. If Miraidon doesn't get KO'd, it Volt Switches out, and then you have Fake Out plus Glacial Lance on this turn. Iron Hands can't protect itself, meaning that Fake Out and Glacial Lance will both land into Iron Hands, ending the game. Cesar knows this, and so battle is canceled.
Yep. Pretty clean 2-0 match here for Patrick Commers, your reigning NAIC champion, trying to retain that title in this Swiss Round 5 match. Incredible plays. I mean, I really love the synergy that was going through that team with whether it was the Chi and Power with the Calyrex Ice Rider, whether it was the supportive Pokemon of Incineroar and Amoonguss helping Calyrex Ice Rider shine, it certainly did glimmer out there on the stage. But Cesar put up a good fight, particularly in that game too.